Opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not WSTU. WSTU does not endorse any products mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU.
The Treasure Coast longest-running local talk radio show is on the air. The Treasure Coast Forum. Get interested, get educated, get involved, and give us a call with your opinions at 220-9788. And here's your host of the Treasure Coast Forum.
Good afternoon. I am Jamie, and you are listening to WSTU 1450, Martin County's Heritage Station. I am here today with John and Mr. Frank. How are you guys doing?
We are well.
Good.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you for asking.
Good. Did you guys celebrate Halloween?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Went over my daughter's house and got a chance to see my grandkids and watch them. My grandson, who goes to South Fork, he said, "Oh, hi, Gramps. See you, Gramps." He took the car keys and he's I got some places to go, people to visit. So, and my granddaughter, she went door to door with my daughter, and I stayed behind and handed out candy to the little ghouls and goblins that came by.
You
So it
got
was-
visitors?
Yes, in her neighborhood.
Wow.
Yes,
Okay. I got like 4 kids visiting, and they were all neighbors.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It gives you a chance to visit with the neighbors. It's good.
Yep. I thought this year, I'm like, I might be pushing the limit on how old I am for trick or
Yeah.
treating.
No.
But I'm like, you know what? I'll go with my friends. Why not?
Yeah. Did you take the ever popular sack from your pillowcase? Yeah.
I did not do that. I took
That's an American tradition.
Yeah, you're right.
I've never done that.
Oh, yeah.
I've never. Yeah, I just took a plastic bag and
Mhm.
went on.
Yeah.
It was very fun. I took
Mhm.
my bikes and went door to door.
Oh,
Yeah, it was nice, and people were playing music. It was very
yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Scary music.
Yes, and
Yeah.
one person was playing three. I think it was like the person. There was an actor in there from Christmas or Vacation.
Mm.
It's called The Three Amigos. Oh, right, the Three Amigos.
Mm.
Don't know why they were playing that, but they were playing
Okay.
that. But yeah,
Alright.
it was nice.
All right.
Yeah, so another Halloween disaster in Korea.
Yeah. My
Yes.
wife was telling me about that. It was over 140
Right,
people.
I think 151 or
Okay.
53.
Mm.
So I have a lot on that.
Okay.
So this disaster, kind of like stampede, happened in Itaewon, which is a little kind of sub city, I would say, in in Seoul, South Korea.
Okay.
And basically, Itaewon is one of the most culturally diverse and cosmopolitan part of Korea.
Okay.
A lot of foreigners there, and a lot of people visit there, which is in Seoul, which makes sense.
Okay.
So a lot of young college kids and just people in the 20s and 30s go there because it has trendy bars, just very young place. And Itaewon's known for its trendy bars and lively clubs at night. And in general, the whole vibe is like young, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And one of the interesting things about it is that it has a kind of Western twist on it because of all the foreigners that go there. It's kind of
Right.
adapted to, okay, well, people like
Western
this. Right.
customs.
Right,
Mhm. Mhm.
cultures and costumes, stuff like that. So, which is what made it kind of the highlight, or like the kind of the hoorah for
Right.
foreigners, because they're like, oh, I feel home here. I'm
Right.
not kind of so different.
It's a
Everyone-
draw. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So now Halloween is not normally celebrated in Korea. It's not one of their traditions.
Right.
But since, Western influence, well, now they celebrate in Itaewon, they celebrate it because, we kind of brought it over. We kind of
Right.
like social media kind of influence, saying, oh my goodness, Itaewon, like they have all this stuff, right? So it became a popular spot for Halloween goers, stuff like that.
Okay.
Right. So and it became a Halloween festival. It started about 5 years ago. So kind of a general new topic. So like every other occasion and stuff like that, that spreads from its original origin. It spreads differently through all cultures and stuff, and all different cultures have their own take on, I guess, Halloween, just other traditions. So
Mhm.
for Americans, we go door to door trick or treating. We do that.
The
But-
scarier the better, and the costume.
right, costumes.
Right.
Correct.
Mhm.
asking for candy, right? For Koreans and young adults, or for Koreans, it's more of a young adult thing, where adults they wear or
Just an excuse to party, right?
yep, and
Yeah.
put on kind of risky costumes that society wouldn't normally accept them as.
Got
Right?
it. Mhm.
Yeah, so kind of
Okay.
they're part of the tradition. So, yep, they dress up, they go party, they club, and they obviously drinking. So, now Korea's still still new to this Halloween thing, and so right, and right, celebrities hype this up, and so with the increasing amount of people going to Korea, and having all these right, and sorry, having all these people in Korea and the narrow streets of Itaewon, it's not it's not going to be the safest environment, obviously, with a lot of people, and it's obviously not a big place. So, and obviously, there are inevitably going to be problems and stuff like that because also
Right.
not too experienced with Halloween. So, tens of thousands of people flooded the streets of Itaewon, the little narrow alleys, and keep in mind, so now Korea and the Halloween tradition, it's been, like kind of put to the side and kind of restricted because of COVID. So,
Right.
right. So we weren't allowed to have as many crowds, not as many people in places. So that kind of like stopped the amount of crowds and the amount of people that were going through the streets.
So I didn't think about that this year too much.
Right.
Right.
And it also made people a lot more eager to celebrate because they're like, they have this drive in them, oh, I missed this.
Pent up anxiety to get out.
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
Mhm,
So a lot
mhm.
more wild this year, a lot everything.
Mhm.
So which is the reason why everybody went all out. They went drinking, everybody. So tens of thousands of people flooded the streets and trying to go every which way to party clubs, a bunch of loud music playing, just everything kind of a loud, very environment and
Mhm.
very kind of unsafe environment.
Mm.
Because also there weren't many police officers around, fun night. So all the music blasting, something bad might happen. So people were shoulder to shoulder as they were on the street and trying to get to places. And yeah, that's when people were starting to stampede and like step on each other, and that's when people fell and just everything bad pretty much happened. Like because the music was playing so loud, people like
Couldn't hear.
right, and that's what made it hard for the police to find them because
They had no
they didn't know
idea.
where they were.
Yeah.
So yeah, not very successful, but now there are guidelines put in place because of this day. So
Right.
so slowly progressing towards
Yeah.
a safer environment. Yeah. So that was the interesting news.
Right. Have you been following what's going on in Iran right now? So that's kind of interesting. So they're still protesting. Months ago, there was that 21-year-old that was killed by the security police there in Iran for wearing her hijab.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's like hijab.
Hijab. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember
And
that.
yeah. So she didn't wear it correctly.
Right.
And as a result, 21-year-old, she got killed.
Deceased, yeah.
And the people there just took great exception to that.
Oh, right. Oh, yes.
And they started rioting, and they're to this day still rioting.
Wow, that happened a few weeks ago. Month,
yeah, actually, it's been I think it's at least a couple of months now.
Right. Yeah.
So, but it's hundreds of thousands of people turning out nightly.
Mm-hmm.
But the government's still not relenting to on their demands. And
okay. So
the security police come in and they crack a few heads and the people disperse and then they do it again the next night. It's really pretty nuts.
So they're protesting, but what are they trying to get passed? Because
they want the government to be less authoritarian,
right,
and especially on this dress code nonsense, killing people for not wearing their proper clothes. It's just not setting well.
Yeah, it's how it looks to other countries as well.
Never mind that. Killing people because of clothing, infractions. Just I mean, can you imagine what would happen at South Fork if somebody got summarily executed because they didn't meet the dress code?
Exactly. Yeah. That's why it was a huge shock in my classes, all my classes, because it was the most ridiculous thing.
Right.
Or very outrageous.
Right. I mean, especially by Western standards, but even now in Middle Eastern standards, is not cool.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Not at all. And I think that's just, young people especially have had enough of this.
Mhm.
And
Right.
more and more people from the working force are coming out to support the young people. And
Mhm. They're
so-
moving away from their older traditions, and they're
Mhm.
seeing like how the world is developing, what different opinions they
right, and they're
have.
seeing what they're missing too.
Right,
Yeah,
as well. Yeah.
right. So
Right. And
interesting. John, what do you got for us?
Okay. Well, okay. This has been an interesting piece so far. Okay, so I delve a lot onto social media. So you're talking about Itaewon, right? Earlier,
yes.
there are videos of events
I've seen
on
them.
social media. So it's like even like protests in Iran, what you're talking about. There are videos of active protests in there. Like for
Mhm.
example, in Itaewon, there is a video of, I believe, a police officer trying to direct people during traffic. The entire situation was entirely hopeless. It's like
Mhm,
Jamie
right.
said, it wasn't even music blasting. It was just people scrambling everywhere.
That too.
And then
yeah.
once you see like buildings and stuff collapsing and then people moving, it just devolves into chaos. And you could see everybody's expression kind of just fade out into like a
Mhm.
blank sheet of terror and try running, but it's entirely too packed.
Yeah.
But
And I looked up some of the people who died. They were like, I think 20, or I think about 20 of them were from the United States, and
Mhm.
just, which, yeah,
they're
very surprising.
students.
Yes, some of them
Yeah.
were students. One of them was in middle school, I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't from the United States, but that was from a different
Mhm.
country.
Mhm.
But still, my parents would not allow me to be in a festival like that in middle school.
No.
However,
I don't know. Sounds fun.
Till a certain
Yeah,
extent.
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, from a balcony. Yeah,
right,
No.
I'll
right.
participate from a
Get some popcorn. Yeah,
right. Mhm.
It's better to get some experience while you're young. That's just my opinion, though. But like Iran, like what
Right.
you're kind of talking about, like students protesting, there are like hundreds, and I mean quite literally hundreds of videos of students actively protesting, flooding streets. I mean, quite literally flooding streets, going around cars, marching everywhere. And then you're talking about, I believe it was the girl who was killed. So I can't remember the specifics of the custom, but I think it's like 30 days or so. Then you go to visit like the tombstone and do traditions.
Mhm.
So it might have been her, it might have been somebody else. Excuse me if I'm wrong. The government essentially blocked the roadway to that hometown,
Mhm.
and I believe it was like 10,000 or more flooded the streets. They blocked off the entire town, so you couldn't drive. So there was just abandoned cars left in the road,
Mhm.
and then just hundreds of people marching to the hometown where eventually they gave pray. Well, they prayed for her. So it's a very interesting time and place. It's not really heavily covered in Western media either.
No, unfortunately, I think that's a big mistake. And another thing that's really not covered a whole lot in Western media is all the protests that are taking place in China, of all places, because of the restrictive COVID, zero COVID crackdowns.
True, it's
Right, they're being quarantined again, huh?
Again,
Yeah,
and the people
that's
are saying enough already.
so. There was a recent spike, but do you know how severe it was?
What, the spike?
Yeah,
Of-
or like into
of-
like
as far as COVID?
in China,
I
because
don't
there has to
know.
be.
Yeah, I mean, it says zero, zero allowance for any COVID. So is that
That's ridiculous.
so one person, you could have 1 million people in a city,
Mhm.
and one person comes down with COVID, they lock down the entire town.
See,
it's like-
COVID's gonna be like the flu, though. It is a variation of the flu,
Yes,
so
yes.
it's never gonna go away.
Exactly.
Which is why I don't see the logic behind quarantining everyone.
This is what happens when you have top-down governance.
You're right. Yeah.
Total authoritarian. Somebody makes a decision, and everybody has to blindly, adhere to it, regardless of whether it makes sense or not. That's not relevant,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know. Just like interesting concepts. Whenever I go onto social media, I see a lot more protests from the Middle East or like wherever, like country in question is protesting. It could be like Haiti. I don't really ever see anything from China. I mean, partly because it's hard to get information out
Yeah.
of China.
Mhm.
But I mean, at the
Mhm.
same time, if you can get information out of Iran, I don't know. It's just like how many loops do you have to go through to actually get information out of them? I mean, it's known fact that there are protests in like every single country. It's just a matter of
I think to
they're
get
filmed or not.
information, yeah, I don't know how you would get information out of China because they control the internet.
Yeah.
So it probably has to be recorded on a device and then spirited out of the country before it can be released.
Yeah. And then by then, how do you get it outside the country? Because everything's being checked unless you have
Right.
like somebody on the inside. But even then, who's going to help you? Because you
Right.
have to first ask them. They could out you.
Right. It's very problematic. Yeah.
So we'll
Yeah.
see. I mean, they had I believe, a crackdown on like Western VPNs as well. So you can't do any of that anymore.
Right.
So it's
And then I heard like a bunch of
And
people
for our
from-
listening audience, we should, excuse me,
Sorry, okay.
VPN. You want to explain what a VPN is?
Virtual Private Network is
Right.
the acronym.
Right.
Mhm.
And so what that means is you can actually be in one location and it on the computer, it appears as though you're somewhere else.
I'll hide your IP, which is
hide your IP.
essentially just like your device's location, like where you are.
You're the address of your device.
So when I turn on my VPN, I don't know if what are your thoughts on VPN? Like, is it safe to have downloaded on?
Yeah,
Kind of.
It depends on the VPN, but I mean, like, if you go onto YouTube, this has been going on for like 2-3 years. There's like Surfshark, there's like NordVPN,
Nord
there's,
is, yeah.
there's like
Okay.
mainly like 3, maybe 4 or 5 that are like big ones that you can have. Like their selling points are like, we're government like rated. We have like government rated encryption. You can go into like 50 different countries.
Mm.
Hey,
Okay, yeah.
so
'cause-
it's good, but
okay, yeah, because I use my VPN. I was a little edgy about getting it at first, and I know some people who are.
Yeah.
really,
Yeah. mhm.
Apparently, if you like watching videos or movies from other countries that you can't get in this country, that you could do that. That's pretty cool. Like it's
Oh,
like a TV show that you like.
Mhm.
It might not show in the U.S., but maybe it shows in Canada or Australia or the
Mhm.
UK, and you can pretend you're there and you can watch those shows.
That's interesting.
That is pretty cool.
I
That's what
mean,
VPNs can do
like
for
for
you.
VPNs, I put it like this: like you have your device's location, but then if like somebody just like goes, "Hey, there's a deer over there," it's kind of like that,
Right.
or like if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because
wait.
like you have your actual one, but they have to get past looking at that deer and then like tracing all the way back to like you.
Oh, I see.
It's
I
kind of
see.
like just like a massive red herring, and then you have to go through encryption.
Mhm.
You have to first get through that encryption, which is a major feat on its own, because it usually, if it's like government rated, it changes like every so often, like every couple seconds or something. So it's like, how are you going to get through that?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Nobody has a key to those encryption codes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Interesting.
It's also used as a Wi-Fi source, right? Because maybe something like that. Because whenever I turn on my VPN, it allows me to go on like social media and like a lot of YouTube videos to load and stuff like that. So like, what is that? Does that have anything to do with it? Kind
Mm,
of, like because
okay, so I'm pretty sure that has something to do with encryption, because I'm assuming you're talking about school.
yes, because South
Okay.
Fork, as we know, South Fork is in kind of the middle of nowhere, and we have very bad Wi-Fi reception. So a lot of kids download VPNs for things to download a lot faster, because also our Wi-Fi source is not as efficient as it's as we need it to be.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, I believe it was 2 years ago, maybe like my sophomore year, all the school laptops and like the entire district's network got hacked, and it became like viruses and everywhere. And like that just like essentially caused so many problems with our district.
Yeah.
So it was like,
that's why the VPN.
no, yeah.
Wow.
So like if you're getting on school Wi-Fi, if that's already happened before, I'm pretty sure there are students that have already hacked into it before.
Oh yes.
From my own
probably.
personal knowledge.
Yeah, I know kids who
so-
can do it.
Yeah, it's just like if they can
Wow.
do it,
Somebody else.
yeah, somebody
Yeah.
else can definitely do it. So at that point, why not just protect yourself a little bit more and then just go that route?
Right. Yeah.
And then relating back to your like question about the internet, it's just you're encrypting it so the school can't really see what you're looking at. So the school kind of blocks like applications such as like social media, like TikTok, Reddit. I don't know
Mhm.
about TikTok, but definitely like Reddit. Some news sources, I don't know why. It's just
Yes.
it's random like series of them, or like if a parent reports them like, hey, this has some inappropriate content, da 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 da, block it, they'll block it.
Yeah,
So it's
because
like
I've looked up informational text before about like history,
Mhm.
and a lot of it was blocked, and I was very concerned, or I was very like, I was very confused
Yeah,
because
you're
I don't know why they would block the information for me to know.
It's
Like,
probably like an automated blocking, something like if
right,
there's,
right,
I
yeah.
don't know, but
right. It's just probably a bot that manages something that you can't intellectualize with, right?
yeah.
Yep.
You're right.
Maybe what
So
happened like YouTube.
yes, which is
Mhm.
the segue that I was just going to make about Twitter.
Okay.
So there's officially a new owner for Twitter, all right? And the president of the United States did a tweet. I want to say maybe yesterday or the other day. He made a tweet, and in the tweet he went out and said that the people on Social Security are
Mhm.
going to be getting the greatest increase in their Social Security payment in the past 10 years. It's
Okay.
huge, right? And thank you, Joe Biden, in the thanks to the president actions was the flavor of the text,
Right.
and he was fact checked by Twitter first time, and
Oh.
they says, well, so Richard Nixon signed this bill into law, and the bill was that Social Security has to keep pace with inflation. It has
Mhm.
nothing to do with the sitting president.
Gotcha. So,
And so the president, they had to put like a explanatory tweet, and they took down the original tweet.
wow.
So I thought that was
Whoa.
kind of
That is
interesting.
interesting.
So
Interesting.
fact checking, which never happened if you had a D after your name in previous ownership of that platform. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with YouTube and
Mhm.
some of the other platforms that don't fact check properly.
Mhm.
If you had an R after your name, you would get more scrutiny, more fact checking. But if you had a D at the end of your name, well, I didn't mean it that way. It's fine. And
Okay.
yeah.
Mhm.
So we got a lot of that. So I think whatever rules that you have to be administered evenly, fairly.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
So,
He should be an interesting executive because I mean, like already he unbanned pretty much everyone, which is already pretty weird. Like like Trump and whatnot, Kanye as well.
Interesting thing was all
Yeah.
the folks that had like massive Twitter followers. Every day the Twitter followers are falling off.
mhm.
All these massive these star-studded individuals that had huge followings. And the reason why is most of the followers were bots. They weren't real followers.
Mm.
As they're cleaning up the bots, the numbers are coming down across the
That was an
board.
interesting thing
Okay.
as well. Some users were getting banned off, I believe, Twitter.
Instagram.
Yeah,
Instagram.
Instagram
Yeah.
for being bots.
Yeah, I've like a bunch of my friends, even though they didn't post anything on
Mhm.
their story, their account was banned for 30 days, and it was like a whole widespread thing across
Yeah.
like everywhere. It was interesting. I really was it because of bots
I-
or
I don't know, to be honest,
yeah,
but I'm
neither do I.
assuming it's something relating to it because, like, if Twitter's going through that,
Right.
Instagram should be going through the same thing as well.
All right.
Right. Yeah.
Facebook, maybe.
Have you guys said we're about ready to go to break? Have you guys seen the ballot for this year's election?
No.
His mom and dad shared that because they probably
They already
you would get-
voted.
yeah, but you would get one
Like
in
Charlie
the mail.
Chris and
Right.
DeSantis. Okay.
So
yeah.
I think I have with me when we come back from break. I'll see if I can find it a
Mhm.
sample ballot.
Okay.
Oh,
So that'd be
okay.
kind of fun to look at to see what your thoughts are on that,
Okay.
and we'll check
boy.
into that when we return.
Yep.
So stick with us. We have much more to cover.
We are back. Thank you for sticking with us. And Mr. Frank, did you say you wanted, right, the ballot?
Sample ballot. So you can
There we go.
see in front of you here. Look at your radio vision phone, or you can look online.
Right.
Yeah, holding over your head.
Right. And here's a sample ballot. First item on the sample ballot, and it's written in Spanish and in English, just in case English is your second language.
Spanish? Or
Yeah,
yes.
if Spanish is your
Vice
first
versa.
language, and
excuse me.
English would be
Yeah.
your second language, so you might respond to Spanish better, right?
Right. Excuse me.
So so there you go. So listed as number one would be Marco Rubio. Val Demings is the Democrat. Rubio's the Republican. Dennis Misgoy is the LPF. Do you know what LPF stands for? Maybe
No.
we can Google that. That is maybe what was that? Would that be libertarian?
Let's
Maybe
see.
libertarian, I would guess. And then Stephen B. Grant is NPA. I have no idea what NPA stands for.
Okay.
And there's another NPA person, or you can write in Tuan TQ Nguyen. How would you pronounce that? I think that's Vietnamese last name.
Yes, libertarian is correct.
Mm.
And then no political affiliation.
Yeah. NPA, no political affiliation, maybe. Yeah. Okay.
But then,
And so
there's-
that'll be interesting to see what kind of percentages the other characters get. But
right.
okay. So and then for District 21, we are now District 21, by the way. In
Okay.
House of Representative, we have Cortina Robinson, who is the Democrat,
Mhm.
running against Brian Mast,
Right.
the Republican. And in governor, there's Ron DeSantis, the Republican governor, running against Charlie Crist. And Hector Rose is the LPF. And Carmen Gimenez, Jimenez, maybe. That would be also running for governor to NPA. So
Okay.
no party affiliation. Ashley Moody is running for Attorney General against Aramis Aliyah, who is the Democrat. Jimmy Petronis is the financial officer, chief financial officer. So it'd be like the money guy, right, for the
Right.
state.
Oh, this sounds familiar to Yig.
Right.
I know.
Mm,
I know.
yeah.
It's from Yig.
These titles could sound familiar indeed.
Right. Right.
And running against Adam Hattersley, who's the Democrat, and Commissioner of Agriculture, Wilton Simpson is the Republican, running against Naomi Bloomer, who is the Democrat. State Representative District 85, Toby Overdorf is running is the Republican against Curtis J. Tucker, the Democrat. And John Snyder, the Republican who's running for State Representative District 86 against Raymond Denzel. Supreme Court Justice. Now, what are your thoughts about if you were to get, I think sending out these advanced sample ballots is helpful
Mm-hmm.
because most people don't even know who are their
Right. who's
justices on
representing.
their state Supreme Court.
Mhm.
And you'd have to do a little research to find out who this guy is,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
how he's doing. So there's several people that are on the state Supreme Court that are, and I guess it's term defined. It's not once you get the job, you just stay in the job. You have to go on the ballot to
Mhm.
keep your job.
Yeah. Right.
So what are your thoughts on that? Because you don't hear anything about the justices that are running on the ballot.
So, like, what do you mean, like, thoughts about how the
Putting their
represent-
names on the ballot, or maybe doing it a little bit different, or
I like that because a lot of people, they're seeing these, they're voting
Right.
and they're getting these kind of kind of, what are they called? This piece of paper?
This is called a sample ballot.
Sample ballot. There we go.
Right. So this is going to be representative of what you're going to see when you go to fill out your actual ballot.
That's good publicity
Mhm.
and getting people informed.
Just like as like I don't even think this is a rule of thumb, but
Mm.
like state-wise, nobody pays attention to it at all.
Mhm.
I mean, the only two ones that I actively have seen ads on YouTube or any social media is Santa's and Charlie Crist, and that's
Right.
mainly just them going back and forth at each other, being like, he does this, he does this.
This one
Oh my
person's-
gosh.
One person's bad, the other
So
person's
it-
more bad.
That's just like
Yeah.
classic
Yeah.
politicalization of each other.
Right.
And like those are the only two I've actually seen campaign ads.
Mhm.
Like
you're right.
outside the radio studio, I've seen like there's probably like 20, maybe 30 signs for candidates.
Mm.
I see candidates that way. I have not seen
Yard
any.
signs,
Yeah,
yeah.
I have not seen any like social media stuff.
Mm.
Like they probably have their own page or like Instagram or something, but they're not really out there like politically. It's not the same effect as like a national candidate.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
frankly, nobody really talks about like state elections. It's just kind of swept under the rug.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because these are the people that are really impact our lives statewide.
Statewide.
Yes, and and we're here in the state, so they more directly affect our lives. So it's really our job to pay attention to what they're doing and put the best people in those positions as we possibly can.
Right.
But I think the curious ones, and these sample ballots are so helpful when there's constitutional amendments then being offered, as there is this year. Now, this is really complicated, and I read it in English and I read it in Spanish, and it's still the same to me. Proposing an amendment to the state constitution to abolish the Constitution Revision Commission, which meets every 20 years intervals and is scheduled to next convene in 2037 as a method of sublimating the proposed amendments of revisions to the state constitution to electors for the state for approval. This amendment does not affect the ability to revise or amend the state constitution through the Citizens Initiative, Constitutional Convention, or Taxation and Budget Reform Commission, or Legislative Joint Resolution. Yes or no?
Okay, so based on
Whoa.
that, essentially, what I gathered from that, every 20 years we have like a group of people essentially go and like start trying to revise things.
They look at what's going on and they say,
Right.
and they make recommendations for constitutional amendments.
I would make that more
Based-
frequent instead of abolishing that.
Well,
That's just my take.
yeah, okay. So you dust it off more often, but so their idea was every 20 years we would look at it and see if there's maybe an amendment could be to eliminate something,
I mean, like personal opinion, like
as opposed to not always adding something.
how long does it take somebody to get like an entire like section of their education done? Usually 4 years, like high school 4 years, college bachelor 4 years. If you take two of those into account, that's essentially like a person turning of age. And then if you have like one lifetime, something's definitely changing.
Right.
I mean, within the past few years, we
I think
had
that's probably why they took the 20 years. That's like an average lifetime.
Yeah, I don't
Generational.
But I mean, like,
Right,
instead
yeah.
of abolishing that, I would probably make that more frequent. Because I mean, like, if you're one abolishing that, nobody's going to go through the hassle. Maybe like 5 people, if it's something like substantial, would
Right.
go through the process to actually try to go against the system and fix something
Right.
instead of
Mhm.
having a system where they could directly institute something saying, we need to fix this immediately.
So instead of the 20 years and abolishing it, how would
It
we
would
change?
they would
It'd vanish.
cease to meet.
I heard about this
Okay.
on the radio, ironically, this
Ah,
morning.
well, very good. Well, I had no idea. Very good. So yeah, that's something worth considering before you go to the voting booth, whether or not you want to have these people who you don't really know necessarily. This is a commission that
Mm.
maybe is selected by the governor, and I don't even know what the selection process is.
Mhm.
But I would suspect it would be like whatever the governing committee is, and then they would. I would hope to be a good cross section of people that are notables in the constitutional law
Mhm.
that could look at the Constitution and see how they could tweak it. I personally don't have a problem with it. And I don't think we've had, I think this is a fairly recent thing, the Constitutional Revision Commission. I think they've only been in practice for maybe 40 years or more. So not,
Like maybe 2 meetings then?
yeah, I think they've only had,
Okay.
so, so whether or not, and so I guess an argument could be made, what are they doing? How well are they doing it? Are they really necessary?
So,
Yeah, okay.
question, is it just them making recommendations?
Mm-hmm.
So the government doesn't have to even take that seriously, is what I'm hearing.
Right.
Okay, so that would need to be more, I don't even think politicized, but it would need to be like much more vocal, like for
Well,
it
they would-
actually to gain support and traction.
Right, because ultimately they would write recommendations to the state
That's
legislators.
an okay, that's an
The
interesting topic.
legislators would have to, adopt or a measure to make a constitutional change.
No, it's
Mhm.
very interesting. Like
Mhm.
that entire topic of like publicity. Because I mean, like you have news channels that are like 24/7 around the clock just doing like what's happening in courtrooms. I guarantee you, maybe there's like 10 people watching that. They probably have a PhD or something in it, and they're just turning on for a second.
Right.
And then I think there's like laws sometimes where it has to be published in newspapers. Nobody reads newspapers. And this has been like a problem for like probably like 10, 20 years, like depending on like the age group you're studying. I'd bet like maybe 20 plus. I mean, like, how would you deal with trying to get that to gain traction?
Yeah.
Because I mean, radio, I mean, no offense to radio, it's kind of like fading out. Sometimes you have it on during the day, like if you're in a workplace, maybe in the car. But other than that, you don't really pay attention to it. TV channels, nobody really watches it. Newspaper, nobody really reads it. Social media, I don't,
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm,
like subtle stuff, I don't really see vocal.
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of people that I know, they're like, I get most of the things I know from social media, just like scrolling through TikTok and stuff like that, like these little like shorts that, like a minute long, that they kind of scrape the surface, which can be lethal too. Like double-edged sword in the sense where the information,
Yeah.
but you only know a specific part of the information. Excuse me. So, yeah, I mean, social media is kind of helpful in the part of news, like getting people involved, like for a
Instant
minute.
access for information.
Right, yeah. And this is why we don't really cherish books as much as we should anymore, because that's really where like we get.
Oh, we got a caller.
got a caller.
And my button works so much better now. Okay.
Wonderful.
Yes, I complained. Hey, you're on the air.
Is it a big red button, Frank?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's next to the big red button.
Next to the big red button.
Next to like 5
All
of
right.
them.
Well, I heard John say
Nobody
newspapers
listens to
are
radio.
dying and-
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm an old guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the FART word.
I
you know?
know. No, we don't want to say that word.
But I was in the newspaper business for 26 years. Got out 2015.
Okay.
No, 2005 I retired.
Oh, 5. Okay.
So what happens is you forget. When you retire, you forget everything.
Yeah. Every day is Sunday. Yeah.
But, it's funny. When I was a kid, I can remember sitting at the kitchen table with my dad and his father and his brother, listening to the Yankees on the black little radio we had. And the television was about the size of the screen was about the size of your cell phone.
Whoop.
Tight.
Okay. We lost you for a moment.
So enjoy listening to your show.
Thanks,
and you're
buddy.
Right.
Thank you.
But radio, Frank, right?
Yeah.
Radio is good.
Yes.
Let's not be, because Carol Wyatt listens to this show.
Yes. Radio is excellent.
Yeah, you're gonna better, otherwise, come on. All right.
Is my
Take
most
care.
favorite thing. All right. Very good. Thanks for
Okay.
calling. All right.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Well, we're going to say it's time for our regulation timeout, and we'll return. We've got a constitutional amendment to talk about, also another one that's on the ballot. So let's get into that when we return. So stick with us.
Welcome back from our second break, I believe, and we will
Yes.
talk about another constitutional amendment. Is this what
Yes,
this is?
yes, exactly what it is. Yes.
Mr. Frank.
You want to read it?
Do I read the whole thing?
Yeah, just the English portion.
Okay, gotcha. So, to grant an additional homestead tax exemption for non-school levies of up to $50,000 of the assessed value of homestead property owned by classroom teachers, law enforcement officers, correctional officers, firefighters, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, child welfare services professionals, active duty members of the United States Armed Forces, and Florida National Guard members shall take effect January 1st, 2023.
Right.
So basically, to put that to English, Mr. Frank.
Yeah. So what did you just read? Do you know what those words all collectively put together? What was the flavor?
So kind of giving
It's an additional homestead tax exemption.
so
So it's an additional
like,
discount
for
your
people
property tax.
Okay. Oh, for teachers and just
For people, an additional exemption for non-school levies
my
up
bad.
to $50,000 of the assessed value of homestead property owned by classroom teachers, law enforcement officers, correctional officers, firefighters, emergency. So, first responders and that sort of thing.
Right.
Right.
First responder. There we go.
Mhm, mhm.
So
So that's the idea.
okay. I
So
mean,
you vote yes if you think that's a good idea, and you vote no if you don't like the idea.
so this would kind of like help them.
It gives them they pay less property tax.
Okay. But why? Just because they're first responders? Why?
Because that's just
Guys,
somebody floated that idea and it made it onto the ballot. So
I don't know about that. I'm not totally against it, but I don't want to like sound like mean or anything.
that's fine. I mean, that's the reason we have the conversation.
Why would they give it to some teachers or why would they give it to first responders? I don't want to say they didn't do anything, but like they are important, obviously,
Yeah.
right, for
Yeah.
functioning of our
Mm,
society.
mm.
But it seems a little much.
Hmm.
I honestly, I don't have a home. I don't know how much $50,000 would be, right? But
It probably represents $50,000.
excuse me, I don't own a home. I am in a home. I don't
Right.
own a home. I don't
Correct.
really know that process.
Right. So it may represent it probably represent maybe a few $100s in taxes if you're not homesteaded. If you're homesteaded, it might be like $50. You know,
Hmm.
don't know. It depends upon the value of the home and that sort of thing. It's all all value based.
If I were to vote on that, I'd definitely have to do more research about how that would affect everybody. But from what I just saw on the
So
ballot,
let's say your home is worth $300,000.
Mhm.
So instead of taking a $300,000 value and calculating your property tax, they take a $250,000. They take $50,000 off the table,
Whoa.
and they say $250,000 and collect taxes based on a $250,000 home instead of a $300,000 home. That's
Okay.
That's so, and the difference could be $50, could be $100, $500. I don't know.
Right. And honestly, that is a bit nicer because our first responders, like teachers and firefighters,
Right.
whatever, stuff like that, they obviously don't get enough. They don't get paid enough because, I mean, they set children's lives, or they kind of engrave the future of students' lives and stuff like that. They're pretty much the ones who do that.
Right.
Besides your parents and stuff like that, obviously your own drive as well chips into that. But that is nicer for the people who kind of save our lives and kind of like push society forward. So it's okay in that sense.
yeah.
But I don't know.
It's very situational, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah. No, that's why it's on the ballot.
Yeah, that is an interesting one.
That's a good. It'll be interesting to see. So when you see the results of next week's election, when we get together next week, we'll see if we can find out if that measure passed or not.
I don't know. I
See
feel like
what the greater Floridian public has to say about it.
like for me, it's hard to gauge how situational it is.
Mhm.
Like, I mean,
Yes.
I can't really nitpick on I mean, that would just be wrong at a certain level of nitpicking who gets what. But I mean, like that entire money situation is like very situational for like every single person, like how it impacts them. It could be like you have a different type of housing, it's located in this area, you don't get paid a lot, some others do. And then I don't know, I'm just trying to grapple with the idea of how they're going to tackle it. And it's not very direct for me.
Right. It's very generalized. Like, yeah,
So
I don't know. Mr. Frank, how do you feel about that? I don't have lots of words.
Yeah, it's again, it's because the election hasn't. I will share my thoughts with you on that next week after the election.
Okay.
All right.
All
To
right.
be fair, because I don't want to sway any
Opinions.
opinions. It's just
Okay.
to put it out there for conversation,
Right.
and it's perfectly worth discussing.
Right.
And there's some merit to both sides of that argument.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So very good. So what do we got? We got a couple minutes left. What are you thinking?
I mean, there's this kind of new idea and kind of process of, it's called bioprinting.
Okay. Oh,
Have you heard of it? Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it uses a digital file as a blueprint to print an object, or like objects layer by layer.
3D printing.
Right.
But
It's similar.
3D printer with biomass.
Cells. Yeah. Right. Which is, it's very interesting. And
make ears.
right. And right. Actually, yeah. The little things first, right? And maybe like parts of skin for burn victims, stuff like that.
Maybe heart valves.
Right. Yeah. I think I read something about that, like printing a new heart for. See that I kind of questioned about that, because could you just like print it? Actually, I don't know how much money that is. I'd have to research that. But could you just like print new organs and then you just
Install
live?
them. Yeah, you build them and install them. And the best part is your body's not going to, you don't have to take a lot of anti-rejection
Mhm.
medication because it's your own biology.
Right. Yeah,
So-
that's true.
So that's going to be a huge, advancement. That's the biggest problem with many transplants is that they have to-
Rejection.
rejection is
Right.
what they worry about.
Exactly. That's why a lot of lung transplants take so long, and just like why they're a lot of them are unsuccessful
Mhm.
because and very scary because you don't
Mhm.
know whether your body's going to reject it, and then if your body does reject it, then obviously that's not good. So
Right. No,
and then you'd have to it's just like the specific parts of your body and how everybody's kind of like a little bit different, how that little difference can jeopardize you. So yeah, this would definitely fix some of those problems that transplants come up with. So
Indeed.
right, yeah, I will definitely have more on that next week. However, they get the files from MRI scans and stuff like
Mhm,
that, like
mhm.
CT scans,
Yeah.
and like they layer the files and get some cells and mix them together.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll see you here next week, right here on Treasure Coast Forum. We thank you for listening.